Dog Nation's exclusive postseason coverage, Go for 2 in 22, is made possible by our partners, R.S. Andrews, Marlowe's Tavern, Georgia Farm Bureau, Royal Caribbean, and by the Wilson PC Personal Injury Attorneys. The 7-6 Apparel Company, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services of Georgia, Discover Dunwoody, and by Kroger. Go for 2 in 22 from Dog Nation. Here's Brandon Adams.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into this Go for 2 in 22 video special. I'm Brandon Adams. We're live here in downtown Atlanta at the site of the Peach Bowl as Georgia continues its preparations for Ohio State. And true story, I was coming down here getting ready to talk to all of you on video today. The purposes of these Go for 2 in 22 videos, kind of get a chance to take a snapshot of each day of the bowl prep for Georgia and just kind of give you a little bit of a sense of what it's like being in Atlanta for this if you can't be in Atlanta yourself. So I was coming downtown to get ready to do the show, and lo and behold, I bumped into Jeff Sintel. I was like, Jeff, I'm getting ready to do a show. Why don't you come do one with me? And so that's exactly what we're doing right now. So, Jeff, I guess before we go into anything else, after all, you got to give folks Go for 2 in 22. Do that first and foremost. Big thanks to all of our sponsors who make it possible. But before we get into the news of the day and kind of what's going on here, I'm going to lean on you for some of that because you were present for some of what I was not able to see here today. First of all, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Hope you and yours had a wonderful, joyous holiday season.
Same to you. Same to everybody else out there. I mean, you get our age with kids, and the dad role takes on a big role, right? You want to make sure everybody else has a good Christmas. Sure. Dad, it doesn't matter. So when anything that doesn't feel like a great, perfect Christmas, Dad wants to change it. Much like Kirby Smart maybe with his Georgia football program. Anything not going right, he's going to fix it.
So obviously that's what Georgia's trying to do right now. There's not much to fix for Team 13-0, reigning SEC champs. On the Ohio State side of things, they're tinkering and working too, obviously to try to avenge the loss they had to their hated rival Michigan to conclude the regular season. And by now you know that as the predominant storyline moving into Saturday's game between the Bulldogs and the Buckeyes. But in addition to the very serious football prep that's going on, there's also some not quite so serious things happening and some, fun things away from the sport. And we're throughout the week going to try to give you a little bit of a look at that. This morning at Dog Nation Daily, we showed you the teams going to the college football playoff and the fun of getting a chance to tour that facility. And some of the other things that go on are dinners and meals together and the chance to kind of compete in things other than football. In fact, I want to give you a little bit of a taste of this right now because this is really what kind of bowl week is all about, to the good and the bad. Sometimes coaches probably like the idea of making this more of a business trip. The tradition of the bowl doesn't quite allow you to necessarily do that, but we've already seen a competition of sorts between both Georgia and Ohio State this week. They took on each other in a version of what I think we'd all kind of call Family Feud for copyright purposes. They may call it something different than that, but the traditional game show where the two teams kind of battled back and forth to answer some questions here. By the looks of things, it was a good night for the Dogs ahead of the game on Saturday. So here on this Go for 2 in 22 special video event, before we break down the serious football stuff, how about a little bit of a look at the Dogs taking down Ohio State in a trivia contest last night, and quite a prize coming their way for doing so. Take a look at this right now.
Baby Ruth. Baby Ruth. If that's up there, you're in great shape.
Name something that you would skip doing if you're running late for class. Yes, sir.
Going to the bathroom.
Going to the bathroom.
Show me, make the bed. It is not up there. That is a good guess.
I'll give you 3 seconds to beat it.
Twix.
Going Twix. Going Twix. Let's try it.
Baby Ruth.
Baby Ruth. Baby Ruth.
That is up there. The pictures. It is 200, 100.
It is not up there. One answer left. There we go. Nice job. Now, that covers any sort of...
That is up there. I'll give you 3 seconds. Try and beat it. It is not up there. The points are up there.
Show me Fruity Pebbles. Like it's hot. Drive it like it's hot.
What are we doing? What are we doing? You
So fun stuff there with Kearis Jackson. You saw Nolan Smith. I believe you saw Branson Robinson there too, getting the best of Ohio State in that trivia contest last night. And I believe, couldn't quite tell from the video, do they get to keep the championship belt for winning the trivia round? Is that an ongoing competition where the belt goes to somebody at the end, or do they get the belt for the trivia contest last night? Jeff Sintel, what can you tell us?
I think probably that's not.
You don't know.
That's probably going to be not the only trophy Georgia will bring home this week. Maybe. Maybe. First of all, I love that, by the way. We need to do that on the Dog Nation cruise. Maybe Mike have a team, you have a team, I have a team.
I like that.
Connor have a team. First of all, I am the one that you want to be playing fast money with right there. It's funny listening to the Ohio State press corps this morning. They were talking about, there was some, I guess, back chatter and some sniggering and sniveling about Georgia maybe had an advanced look at the questions or something like that. Or there was some sort of name, image, and likeness deal for Georgia with Chick-fil-A.
I started to say, so Georgia had the inside track on getting Damon Wilson, and now they got the inside track on the trivia contest there as well. The grizzled veterans of the Ohio State media corps will find no shortage of opportunities to, I guess, accuse Georgia of anything, I guess.
Well, I guess more of it is, Georgia's been here, done that. They're used to it. They're used to that city, so they think everything's going to be inappropriate, or Georgia's going to – maybe Steve Harvey is a closet Bulldog fan or whatever, but – looks like Dogs are 1-0 so far this week against Ohio State.
A couple points about this. First of all, I said this on Dog Nation Daily this morning, which is if you're a fan, sometimes you're left to wonder, what do all these events mean for me? Clearly it means something for the team, but what does it mean for me? And I think the point that I kind of take from this is we made a big deal of the video, 2 seconds worth of Ladd McConkey walking off the bus to get inside the College Football Hall of Fame. And obviously we're used to a lot of secrecy, really, really shrouding everything that goes on with college football. But with bowl week, because you do have some open practice periods, because you do have a lot more media availability, a lot of players that aren't typically speaking to the media are speaking, you just have more press conferences taking place, and because you have these additional public events where a lot of cameras are out, even when the regular media is sort of prohibited from being there, there's still cameras going to be there, and watchful eyes will see what they see. The point here is if you're trying to figure out what's going on with Warren McClendon, what's going on with Ladd McConkey, what's going on in these particular situations, it's a lot more difficult to keep something like that truly under wraps and a total secret at a time in which there are just so many more eyeballs on really both sides, the Columbus side, the Athens side, whatever you want to do here. There are just so many more eyeballs on something like this. The extra public events, I just think, make it a little bit more, maybe a little easier to kind of figure out what truly is going on with both these teams.
I think it puts you behind the velvet rope a little bit. I don't know if you saw the whispers when Ladd McConkey gave some kid a hug for Christmas.
I did see that.
Kid was wearing a jersey, and they came out in the front driveway. It looked like he was having Christmas dinner, and somebody drove by the house, and Ladd ambles out and looked like he was looking very sporty and very able. And
yeah, the kid's reaction to it, by the way, is great. He's so emotional. It was great to see. I gave my children Peach Bowl tickets for Christmas, and they're like, "Yay!" I was looking for one of those really big, emotional tears in the eyes type thing. They're like, "Yeah, thanks, Dad." I didn't quite get the emotional response. Maybe I was hoping for.
Maybe if you had a Lego around it, but a Lego set or whatever, or the funny thing about this week is I think it's talking season, Brandon, for a lot of it. I think you get to see, players having fun, cutting it up a little bit, yucking it up a little bit. It's part of I remember probably, Brandon, one of my fondest memories of 2017 in Rose Bowl out in Pasadena was when they had that prime rib competition.
Totally agree. One of the most fun things we did the entire week was going to the restaurant they call Lowry's. Traditional. They have the beef bowl, the traditional event for the Rose Bowl. Of the entire week being in L.A., that was actually one of my fondest memories of the entire event.
Great food, great moment where you're like, okay, you're going to see who's going to eat more, who's going to put away more beef, and that seems lineman, that seems football, and if you're a member of the media and you got to have that meal too, then it was quite a treat and quite a blessing.
Now, I do think it's possible to handle this poorly, right? This is Ohio State. Georgia's in the playoff last year. Ohio State wasn't. And Ohio State's got obviously plenty of experience in big games, but when you're going from meal to charity event to this to that to fun outing, it is possible not to compartmentalize this properly. We think we've seen Georgia do that now. They've won both of their national semifinal appearances, 2017 and 2021. So clearly Georgia hasn't fallen prey to this. But when you're a part of a bowl week like this, you do get a sense of how easy it would be for a team to get distracted by all this and not maybe be as prepared for a football game as they would be in their normal routine and rhythm of the regular season.
Yeah, you get a lot of snippets of that this morning. First of all, you hear from folks around the Ohio State program, and they tell you that, is it time for Ryan Day to give up play calling duties? Is it time for him to just be the CEO head coach because that's so much to focus on? And they lament the fact that they haven't played a complete game this year, that being the Ohio State game. I think they feel that Ohio State was pretty close when they played Penn State earlier this year. But there's a lot of things going on about, not, chirping a little bit when you have an unhappy season. And folks, they had an unhappy season because they lost their last game to Michigan, which really is the season for a program that calls that game the game. And the more things that come out, you hear like, how physical are they? How many first-round picks are they? How good do they do covering tight ends? And the point they brought up was, well, they faced Michael Mayer in the opening game against Ohio State, and he had like 6 catches for Ohio State and Notre Dame. That's the All-American tight end at Notre Dame, and he had like 6 catches for 80 yards, but really got loose on just one really big play. So the follow-up is like, how do you deal with a team that has 2 very good tight ends? And they're like, dude, nobody has 2 very good tight ends like that. That's just Georgia.
There's no comp for that.
And I think the consensus, if you had to poll a lot of folks that really follow Ohio State this week, is that they don't really know if they have plans for Los Angeles on the 9th. And, this is just their shot at some redemption. But the other main thing is when they look at everything that's going on. I think somebody asked a question today about C.J. Stroud. Big Ten, Michigan game. And he's like, dude, no. It's not about that anymore. It's about Georgia. And I think there's an underbelly of kind of the feeling that, dude, Georgia is better than Michigan. So we got to focus on Georgia this week to even get back to Michigan because they realize the challenge at hand.
I want to find out from you what the Georgia Bulldogs we heard from today, Glenn Schumann, Will Muschamp, some of those Georgia players, what they had to say there as well. Before that, though, let me pause for a quick moment here. It's a Go for 2 in 22 special video event. We're live in downtown Atlanta, and it's all made possible by a great collection of sponsors. In fact, let's let you hear about a couple of those here right now.
Dog Nation's postseason coverage, Go for 2 in 22, is made possible by our partners, including
the Wilson PC Personal Injury Attorneys. Because Atlanta happens from out of nowhere. When the unexpected happens to you, visit atlantahappens.com.
the 7-6 Apparel Company, the perfect holiday gifts for the hard-to-find person in your family. Visit the76.com to start shopping today.
And Berkshire Hathaway Home Services of Georgia. The best time for new beginnings is now. Forever moving you. Visit bhhsgeorgia.com to start your search today. And now, back to the show.
So once again, thanks to some great sponsors making all of this possible, our Go for 2 in 22 video coverage throughout the season here as the Dogs pursue that second national championship in the Kirby Smart era. That's what Go for 2 in 22 has been all about. In fact, I've got the original Go for 2 in 22 t-shirt on here right now. That's the mission. Ohio State, the next obstacle standing in the way of all that. And coming up on Saturday night, we'll find out if these Dogs are able to topple it, get it done, and be on their way to L.A. for a shot at the national championship after that. Now, obviously, the Georgia defense plays a big role in how all of this plays out. Today, Jeff had a chance to hear from Will Muschamp, Glenn Schumann, the 2 co-defensive coordinators, handful of Georgia players as well. What did you take from what the Georgia defense had to say today?
Well, I think there was a funny quip. I don't know if you heard that or saw the headlines yet, where somebody asked Will Muschamp. There's a thread there. The last time Georgia played Ohio State, Will Muschamp was on the field, played for Georgia. I think he had a tackle in the game. And the quarterback for Ohio State that day was Kirk Herbstreit. Now, folks, Kirk is a marvelous broadcaster, probably a Hall of Fame broadcaster. He brings the stories to the people so well, and obviously he looks pretty good on TV. I hear from a lot of the people in my life, the ladies in my life, the wives in the life, that talk about how they like to look at Kirk Herbstreit. But you look at his stat line, Brandon, it was not a Hall of Fame stat line. They barely threw the ball a lot at Ohio State. And I think one of the things that Will Muschamp did is he told a story about there was a pregame event, and somehow in that pregame event, Kirk Herbstreit was asked to throw the ball across the ballroom. And Muschamp made a dig as he's like, man, when I saw him throw the ball, I knew he had a chance in the Citrus Bowl because he saw what maybe Kirk didn't bring to the table or did bring to the table in terms of an arm. And that was the thing that got a lot of people laughing. I think Will Muschamp had a great session today. Most people think he's probably one of the more entertaining characters on the Georgia beat. Very good interview, very candid. Of course, he's been a head coach forever, and he's been in front of microphones for forever, so pretty well skilled in doing that. I thought Glenn Schumann, textbook, analytical, whiz kid, genius type, he presented himself really well. And a lot of the questions were about how the dual roles work at Georgia. Muschamp has the back end, Glenn Schumann has the front 7, and they work together. I think one of them said that the main thing they do is they focus on is winning, and then the second thing they focus on is playing good defense. They check their egos. Had a lot of inside linebacker talk. You had a lot of appreciation of Chris Smith. I laughed when someone asked. I think even someone brought it up in the press conference today, and Will Muschamp ran with it about what the practice field for William Poole and Chris Smith looked like at Hapeville Charter many years ago. And man, folks, you've never seen that. I've tweeted something out recently. You can find some Dog Nation archives, but not very pristine, not very top tier whatsoever. And now he's an All-American. Just a really great story there. Zion Logue had something to share today where he was like, I'll be honest, I thought Ohio State was going to win that game. He said he thought Ohio State was going to beat Michigan. He thought Ohio State was probably the better team, and that's what he kind of thought would come out of that. And then, of course, there were a couple, maybe 4 or 5 big plays in that game that changed everything.
Yeah, exactly right. And obviously Ohio State's an offense is capable of producing big plays, which I think does put a lot of pressure on the Georgia defense in this game here coming up, both in terms of what happens on the front end. You know, C.J. Stroud has not been sacked much this year. I believe it's just 8 total sacks allowed for the Ohio State offense all season long. And, you know, the back end there as well. We know that one of the criticisms that Georgia kind of has lingering around it was the big passing plays given up in the SEC championship. Admittedly, most of that was when the game was well in hand, kind of garbage time, if you will. But nonetheless, it did happen. And it was the kind of exploitation of the Georgia defense we just haven't seen very much. So when you look at those two issues, what Georgia's trying to do in the front end, getting after C.J. Stroud, what's happening there on the back end, making sure that great wide receivers like Marvin Harrison Jr. and guys like Julian Fleming, who's kind of come on here a little bit, one of those amazing former 5-stars that sort of sits and waits his time, and finally when he gets a chance to play, starts to play better. And that's kind of what Fleming's done here as of late. You know, which of those two issues is more important for you? How you get after Stroud, or how you prevent Stroud's pass-catching targets from getting behind your defense and turning into those big explosive plays, which really Ohio State's kind of famous for?
Yeah, one of the things I thought was very interesting intel from talking to a lot of Ohio State folks today is, you know, listen, Ohio State's been the place for receivers, Brandon. I think you've pounded your fist on your table a couple of times watching big names like Julian Fleming go play for Ohio State, but it was really an appreciation for Marvin Harrison Jr., like multiple members of Ohio State football media coverage, people that have been covering this program for decades now, they put Marvin Harrison above everybody that Ohio State has had recently. That's Garrett Wilson, that's Chris Olave, that's Julian Fleming, that's Jackson, the young man that's injured and won't be able to play in this game. They put him above all those because he just does so many things well. There have been a lot of play calls this year where C.J. Stroud was asked to throw the ball in a very tight window where maybe only the best receiver in college football could make that play. And Marvin Harrison has made that play over and over again. They're really complimentary of how much they like Marvin Harrison Jr. They worry about the run game because one of the things we watch Ryan Day's teams play, especially the last few years, and maybe that's some of that chirping about does he still need to call plays for Ohio State, is when things get dicey, when the team gets under duress, he abandons the run game, just throws the ball around a lot. And that's one of the things that they see different. A few years ago, Ohio State would run a lot of mesh concepts, a lot of short plays, a lot of quick plays, 10 yards. Like the easiest thing it used to be was for Ohio State to get 10 yards. And now it's very hard the way the calls are in their offense. They don't check the ball down to their backs quite as much. And I think the biggest thing is they don't have Justin Fields there, a guy that when everything breaks down, he's going to get you 8 yards regardless when the other team tries to force its will on you.
Obviously, we're looking forward to Saturday. Going to be a great time, and really looking forward to the week as well, as both these teams put their best on display in terms of, you know, they talk about their plans of attack, but also a chance to see some of practice here, both Wednesday and Thursday. It's a fun time to be obviously around Georgia football, and the anticipation continues to build for the game itself, which kicks off on New Year's Eve right here in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Georgia very lucky to be able to play this game right there in its own backyard. Jeff, as a part of our Go for 2 in 22, it's been great to have you here. How about a final thought from you of kind of where you are from a mental standpoint moving into what the rest of the week's going to look like?
I think it's just a matter. I think there's a lot of advantages for Georgia. I think momentum, confidence, having been there, played there is very big. I think people have championed the point that I think this will be Stetson Bennett's 4th game in 2 years. I believe it'll be his 5th game in 2 years playing in this stadium. So a lot of comfort factors there. You know, Ohio State, the Ohio State team is not maybe as laden with first rounders as it was in the past. The other thing you pick up, Brandon, which is really crazy, is you remember how folks can be sometimes when you're up at the mountain and you're just knocking on the door, and sometimes it's so frustrating to be the number 3 or the number 2 team in the country and not break through. That's the general feeling you get from a lot of Ohio State folks, is that They have the number 4 recruiting class in the country. They have the number 4 team in the country. They're playing for the right to play for the national championship, and everyone is just miserable. They're just like sour because it's not what it could be, but it is what it is right now.
So a very interesting look at what's happening on the Ohio State side of things. Obviously, the Georgia feeling very different, 13-0, undefeated, but the Michigan continues to keep that going and be the first team in college football playoff history to win back-to-back national champions, one of the few teams to have a 15-0 national championship season. Quite a chance at history here for these Georgia Bulldogs. That is what Go for 2 in 22 is all about. That's why I wear the T-shirt. That's why so many of you are wearing this kind of paraphernalia and using the hashtag Go for 2 in 22 on social media throughout the time here, because we believe it can be a special moment for these dogs, but Ohio State is the next challenge standing in the way. So we'll say goodbye to you for right now, but look forward to certainly having plenty more video coverage from you, from downtown Atlanta throughout the week, and of course on Dog Nation Daily again tomorrow morning there as well. So have a great afternoon and evening, everybody. Thanks for being a part of Go for 2 in 22. Thank you so much to all of our sponsors who make all of it possible there as well, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next time.